Joining me now to talk more about this, New York Democratic Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez. She is here, of course, as a surrogate of the Harris campaign, but she's also the first Puerto Rican woman ever elected to the House of Representatives. Congresswoman, it's great to get your perspective on this. What do you buy of the Trump campaign's effort to distance themselves from these comments? We see other top Republicans doing it as well. What's your reaction?
Thank you so much for having me. Well, the Trump campaign may claim that these comments do not reflect their views, but his track record is clear. Trump repeatedly attacked our island in the wake of Hurricane Maria. He claimed Puerto Ricans want everything done for them, derided Puerto Rico as a dirty and poor, and suggested selling Puerto Rico or trading it for Greenland. Ryan, the fact of the matter is that every surrogate and every speaker that goes into that stage is vetted, and the campaign knows exactly what they're going to be saying. So we don't buy that. We know who Donald Trump is. We live through it.
I want to show you what Pete Buttigieg, the current transportation secretary, what he had to say about this. He said, quote, "The strategy is familiar and predictable by now. A pile of outrageous statements, all to ensure we spend the next days talking about him, not about you, and not about how Kamala Harris will make life more affordable and restore the right to choose that he took away. It's bait." Do you agree with the secretary there? You just have 8 days left. Do you think the vice president should spend more time talking about herself and her plans or attacking Donald Trump?
Well, look, while speakers at Trump's rally were spewing racism toward Puerto Ricans, Kamala Harris was unveiling a new opportunity agenda for the island. So she's talking to the Puerto Rican people and Puerto Ricans in the mainland who cares deeply about the state of affairs in Puerto Rico. So she unveiled an agenda that will uplift the Puerto Rican economy, that will restore the power grid, that will lower the cost of health care, and will provide accessible housing in Puerto Rico. So while Donald Trump is talking about himself, Kamala Harris is talking about moving an agenda forward that will make Puerto Ricans whole, both in Puerto Rico and in the mainland. And don't forget, we have 450,000 Puerto Ricans in Philadelphia, Allentown, Reading. We're going to go there this weekend with buses going from New York with volunteers so that we discuss with them why Puerto Rico, too, is on the ballot and the importance of getting out to vote and getting out early.
And maybe expand that out just a little bit for those of us that aren't members of the Puerto Rican community. How close-knit are those families that have direct ties to the island that now live here on the mainland? Are they talking to each other all the time? Will something like this resonate in those communities in a way that some of us might not even understand?
Look, nothing else has been discussed in Puerto Rico right now since last night, and people are really angry. And I sent a message through the press conference that we held today to every family in Puerto Rico to reach out to their relatives here and to say, I cannot vote in Puerto Rico, but you can vote for me. So that is what is important. And yes, Puerto Rico follows very closely the dynamics, the political dynamics here in the United States. And they know exactly what Donald Trump meant when he, speaker after speaker, was spewing hatred and horrible remarks against not only Puerto Ricans, but Latinos.
So let's talk about that then, because polling has said that the former president's made some gains with Latino voters, that some prefer Trump to Harris based on his record in office. What is your case to them for Kamala Harris, and not just against Donald Trump, but specifically for Kamala Harris?
Well, Kamala Harris is about result. She is about uniting this country. She's about representing everyone. She's about bringing people together. And that is so important. We are tired. The American people are tired about all the emotional and the dysfunction and the chaos that we witnessed during the 4 years of Donald Trump. We do not want to go back to that. We need to move forward. We need to turn the page. And the only one who can do that is Kamala Harris.
All right, I want to play for you some of what we heard Kamala Harris say during an interview over the weekend. Take a listen.
What would your first 100 days look like? What would be your top legislative priority?
Well, it's going to be lowering costs and a package of legislation that is about lowering costs, again, on the issue of housing, small businesses, child tax credit, basically putting more money in the hands of American working people, but also cutting middle-class taxes.
So, Congresswoman, you are a senior member of the House of Representatives. You're going to be relied upon by the vice president to pass this agenda that's meant to lower costs. Do you hear a specific legislative priority from her in that answer? And what do you want to hear from her in terms of making this final pitch to voters?
Well, look, I am the ranking member on the House Small Business Committee. And of course, we know that in order to keep the economy growing, we have to invest in small businesses. We have to create a climate that is conducive for small businesses to do what they do best, and that is to create jobs. The fact that she's willing to invest in small businesses, that will create better paying jobs for everyone. Lowering costs, that is a way to deal also with inflation. So the issues that she is and the policies that she wants to implement will impact families in America. Mm-hmm. And that is why so many people are rallying around Kamala Harris. She's talking about policies. She's talking about her agenda, her vision. What do we hear from the other side? What do we hear from Trump? It's me, me, me.
Right, and we have less than 30 seconds here, but you could face a scenario where, say, Democrats win the House, say Kamala Harris wins the presidency, that Republicans still win the Senate. Can she get this agenda passed if there's divided government?
Yes, she can. And, she was a member of the Senate. She has relationships in the Senate. And this is for the sake of the American people. This is to do right by the American people. And I think that she has the personality, the vision, the leadership, the skills to deal with a Republican Senate.
Okay.
People are tired of partisanship. The people want to see a Congress that works for the American people and a president that is able to deliver for the American people.
All right, Congresswoman Velázquez, your perspective very important given the news of the last 24 hours. We appreciate you being on with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.